So we'll get started on the Bhagavad Gita. We are actually reading the introduction, which is quite comprehensive, and actually the introduction to the Bhagavad Gita has a very special place for us in our lives, because when we came from India and we had so many questions, and we actually got a copy of the Bhagavad Gita on 4th of July. And both of us started reading the introduction, and for us, the introduction completely changed our lives. We just, these were questions. Many of the questions and answers that were there were things we had thought about, but many we had not even thought about. But there could be such questions, and so it was such an aha moment as we kept reading through it. So for us, it really made a huge impact on us. So while Muktashi was doing his Gayatri, we'll just continue. Where did we leave off last time? Do you remember what page?
Page 15. There are many examples given of how to utilize those things. We did that paragraph last time.
On page 15-16, the paragraph that we are going to start tonight, it says, "In this world, men are not meant for quarreling like cats and dogs." The paragraph previous to that we did last night, the last Friday, it says there are many examples given of how. They're on page 16, 15, something like that. Everybody found it?
Yeah.
Okay. So, one thing that I was suggesting today is that you can start bringing a notebook, and then what we will do is every paragraph in the introduction is very powerful. It introduces a very important topic. Prabhupada introduces a very important topic, and you will see that there is a thread that going through. Prabhupada writes very, very logically. So you will find a thread within the paragraph as well. So if you just read and then discuss, which is good, but if you start writing down, you will see that you are actually assimilating more. So there are three things we'll consider when writing down. One, what is the main point of this paragraph? One or two main points. Shouldn't be like too long, just one or two sentences. What is the main point that you get out of it? And the second part is a little bit of explanation, maybe 2 or 3 sentences or maybe more. You can go back home and write down more if you want. So what is the explanation of those main points? How do you explain those main points to yourself or somebody? What did you understand from those main points? And the last part is application. So application is, how can I apply it? What are the difficulties I see in applying this? Or if you see somebody else who's applying it really nicely, you can maybe mention that, hey, I see this guy, he's really focused, or whatever point related to this paragraph you see, you can write it down. So that way what will happen is you'll start collecting all these different things in your notebook, and at the end of the introduction, you'll have so much material, you'll realize that, yeah, I actually understood Bhagavad Gita so thoroughly. And we'll have a test at the end of the whole introduction. Yeah, we'll have a test. Well, that's the thing that motivates Indians to take notes, right? And your kids will be sitting here. We'll announce your scores in front of your kids.
Let me know which day is the test. I will not come that day.
But the next day, then you will get a more difficult test. But anyways, I feel that when we write things down, it really helps us. And you can write down in the middle of the class, but at the end of the class, we'll take a 5-minute or 6-minute break, and then everybody writes down something. And then we start accumulating. So, in the last class we discussed, anybody remembers what was the main point from the last class? Something that you remember.
That what's in it for me? Krishna is always asking. Arjuna is always asking what's in it for me. Krishna still wants Arjuna to do the killings of his kinsmen because that's his desire. So Arjuna should not question and just follow whatever Krishna is saying.
Very nice. So, understanding our, we talked about what's in it for me versus what Krishna wants, right? And we're always struggling with that. So, Krishna wants something. How do we understand what Krishna wants? And of course, we're allowed the question because we want to understand it and do it and realize and do it. And you see, Bhagavad Gita is a whole set of questions and answers. Arjuna doesn't get it in the beginning, and Krishna keeps telling him that he should fight. Arjuna says, again, he has a new question. Again, he has a new question. So questioning is all right as long as we are willing to accept the answer from a right authority, and then we can ask more questions. So the point of the last discussion was what's in it for me, and turning that into what's in it for Krishna. So how do we make that switch in our life, day-to-day life? We discussed about that.
I was just thinking that that discussion about what's in it for me also connects with that paragraph that we read from Sachinandan Swami. That we bring that same mindset into our spiritual life as well, even when we are chanting, what's in it for me? And while that is good, it allows us to find maybe even some motivation. Like Krishna says that there are 4 kinds of people who approach me. So even if we come to spiritual life with some motivation, that's all right. But as we progress, then we want to let go of that motivation. Just like a little child may say, well, I'm going to eat my broccoli if I get a candy. So there is some motivation there, and that's okay for a 4-year-old or a 5-year-old. But hopefully as we mature, then we have, then we understand why do I eat this? And hopefully at some point we develop a taste for it even. So in the beginning we may have some ulterior reasons, and that's all right. But this whole idea of what's in it for me can be sometimes such a block. I know for myself even, I catch myself, thinking like that what's my benefit? And then one has to, think about it, that it's really not about me. I'm not the center. Really Krishna is.
Yeah, because we start with what's in it for me in terms of my body or my mind, and then expands, and we start thinking what's in it for my soul, and then even that can go higher, and then ultimately our goal is that what's in it for Krishna, because whatever is Krishna's desire, that's good for my body, that's good for my soul, that's good for my mind, that's good for everybody. So making that switch and letting go of that fear, because we have a fear associated that if I fulfill Krishna's desire, then what will happen to my desire? Who's going to take care of my desire? Who's going to fill my bucket? So we always have that fear, and it's natural because in conditioned life we are kind of thrown around. We are not taken care of, and we have to fend for ourselves, and we don't have that trust in Krishna yet. So spiritual life is about also developing that trust in Krishna. That he's already taken care of me. I can't even breathe one breath if Krishna doesn't allow it. So I guess gradually having that realization. So for our sake of our writing, so you can say what's the main point? What's in it for me? What's in it for Krishna? Whatever you want to phrase it. Explanation then could be like how we are always acting on the body platform. We're making our decisions, countries or communities or whoever we are all acting on. So you can explain that like that. An application, you can say, hey, I have difficulty in applying this part, but I'm okay in applying this part, or whatever. You can write something like that in your terms of your application. Just an example of kind of how to go about doing that, and you can find your own ways, of course.
Should we read?
Yeah.
In this world, men are not meant for quarreling like cats and dogs. Men must be intelligent to realize the importance of human life and refuse to act like ordinary animals. A human being should realize the aim of his life, and this direction is given in all Vedic literatures, and the essence is given in Bhagavad Gita. Vedic literature is meant for human beings, not for animals. Animals can kill other living animals, and there is no question of sin on their part. But if a man kills an animal for the satisfaction of his uncontrolled taste, he must be responsible for breaking the laws of nature. In the Bhagavad Gita, it is clearly explained that there are 3 kinds of activities according to the different modes of nature: the activities of goodness, of passion, and of ignorance. Similarly, there are 3 kinds of eatables also: eatables in goodness, passion, and ignorance. All of this is clearly described, and if we properly utilize the instructions of Bhagavad Gita, then our whole life will become purified, and ultimately we will be able to reach the destination which is beyond this material sky. So we'll pause here and then take any reflections based on what we just read. Any thoughts, any comments? It's a very basic principle of eating. in a mode of goodness. So, anything that stood out for you?
So we have been given higher intelligence, not just to to live like animals, but to realize the higher purpose of life.
Yeah. And it's also bringing in this idea of karma, right? That when we kill animals for the satisfaction of our taste, then there is some karmic reaction that comes about. And of course, when animals do it, then there is no question of sin on their part. And that's the difference between humans engaging in killing or animals engaging in killing. Anything else?
I like this sentence where Prabhupada says that Vedic literature is meant for human beings, not for animals. And it's very ironical that in today's world now we actually glorify being animalistic sometimes.
Yeah.
Our tendencies generally
Just
glorify.
do it.
Yeah, just and without like
Thinking.
in for the name of liberation, people tend to do animalistic things. They say, oh, we are free, equality. It's very ironical.
Yeah. And this is actually a very significant part even in the study of Ayurveda, that the food that we eat actually has such an impact on our consciousness. Generally we think that food is something that we just put in our stomach and that's about it, but it actually has a profound effect. And here the whole idea about food in the mode of goodness, food in the mode of passion, and food in the mode of ignorance. While people who are in the mode of goodness are naturally attracted to food in the mode of goodness, but it's also there, it's the other way around also, that if I do indulge in food that is in the mode of passion or ignorance, then my consciousness will actually undergo a change. And also this whole idea of eating and also cooking in a certain consciousness. It's something that's definitely a very integral part of our bhakti practice, but it's also something that's really talked about a lot in the practice of Ayurveda as well, where how we cook. Are we cooking in a state of anger? Are we cooking, just really, really agitated, in a rush? That those emotions are actually going to affect the food, the quality of food. It's a very subtle effect, but the effect is there. And in turn, when we eat that food, how are we taking that food? What is our consciousness? That's also going to affect how that food is going to affect us. So it's a whole science, it's a whole art of cooking, offering, and then accepting. And that itself is actually considered to be one of main pillar of good health, as well as in our bhakti practice, it's actually one of our biggest pillars of spirituality. Prabhupada says that one can actually go back to Godhead simply by accepting prasadam. So prasadam is so powerful that if we learn how to cook in the right consciousness and accept it, then we can make a lot of spiritual progress. And there are so many wonderful stories about prasadam. In fact, Prabhupada said that ours is a kitchen religion, which means that, this is what we do, right? We cook, we offer, and then we distribute prasadam. Anybody else?
I have a question on this.
Yes.
I know we're talking about eatables, but what about generally, you have to kill animals? Like a farmer, while he's growing crops, he's killing so many rodents and so many animals just to protect the crops.
Yeah.
But that's also a form of food, and then we are, eating those crops or vegetables or whatever. Or there are many other reasons just for protection that you have to kill animals. So what kind of karma accumulates in that case?
Very nice question. I think that's one.
And
Yeah.
sometimes we are offering those crops to God too. So what is happening in that case?
You can throw the question back out and see.
Yeah, what do you think?
Anybody have a response?
What was the question?
Oh,
Accidental killing, just to maintain ourselves, like in the farms. So many insects and rodents are killed just to raise the crops and transporting and day-to-day handling, day-to-day life, so many lives are taken. So there is karma and so how do we deal with that?
I think Adam promoted.
I was just thinking of a story that I once heard about Srila Prabhupada where, I don't know about the accidental killing, but I know that one time there was a mosquito that landed on him and someone said, should I kill it? And he said no. And then the mosquito was going to bite him and he said, okay, he's attacking me, you may kill him. And I don't know if that was if a principle could be derived from that or not, but it seemed to me that if an animal was trying, to invade your space or harm you or something like that, that if Prabhupada had that attitude,
Should be okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, Prabhupada was kind of very broad-minded, so like sometimes once he went to a kitchen in a temple and they had rodents or mice, and devotees asked him that should we bring some mice killer and kill the mice, and Prabhupada was very upset with them. He said, that means you don't keep your kitchen clean, and that's why you have mice. So take care of the kitchen and there won't be any mice. And he also writes in many places that in farms and in things like that, one should not kill the rodents because they also have a right to take part of the food that you're growing. Prabhupada's father, he used to, he had a clothes shop. So at night there used to be this mice that used to roam around in the store, and they used to like chew the cloth and ruin the cloth. So Prabhupada's father started putting a bowl of some food under the table so that the mice would eat that and they will not eat the cloth. So he was very broad-minded, and I guess the principle is that one should minimize the killing. Nowadays it's extreme because nowadays even the food itself kills human beings, so to speak of rodents. So, but the principle is that we should minimize the killing as much as possible, and still there will be some accidental killing. So we'll answer that question.
Right, and I guess the point is that in any kind of activity that we do, whether, like you're saying, just the act of growing food or transporting or even purifying water, we are actually, we want to purify the water, we do land up killing some microbes and things like that. So there is always karma. Even the act of driving, right, has, there's so many animals and, breathing even. So that's why, when Krishna again and again, he uses this idea of yajna. He says, yajna dharta karna anyatra. He says that work has to be performed as a sacrifice. Because if you don't do that, then that work will actually create bondage for you. So any activity that we do, if it is done as an offering, as a form of sacrifice for the satisfaction of the Supreme, then whatever things are there in that yajna, which are impure, they actually get purified because of the offering process. Actually, that is Arjuna's primary concern. He's saying, if I engage in this battle, there's going to be karmic reaction, and then I'm going to incur bad karma. So what about that? So then that's why Krishna tells him that yes, you can never stop engaging in activity. Activity is something, even if you go off into a cave, you'll still be active and you will incur karma. So better you engage in activities that are meant for satisfaction of the Supreme. So in that case, even if there is some incidental reaction as a result of performing that activity, then those incidental reactions are neutralized by Krishna. And Krishna says that in the last verse, he says, I will deliver you from all sinful reactions, do not fear. So what can we do? When we come into this material world, we are placed in the situation where we cannot avoid incurring some kind of karmic reaction. But if we engage in spiritual activities, then those activities will become neutralized and in fact will become a karma or spiritual karma. So there's no really easy way around that.
I was also thinking about the example of when Lord Ramachandra killed Bali Maharaj.
Yeah.
And then when Lord Krishna came, Bali Maharaj cursed him, Lord Ramachandra, and when Lord Krishna came, he was attacked by a hunter.
Yeah.
Yes, so that comes to this point of he must be responsible for breaking the laws of nature.
Yeah.
So there is karmic that, but I like what Srila Prabhupada says whenever we chant Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya. It takes away all the karmic reactions, and it makes us go one step forward in our spiritual advancement.
Yeah.
We cannot be perfect, but Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is there. That's why we call him Namo Mahavidhanaya.
Yeah, very nice.
So
very nice. Yeah, it's true. I mean, there are many monks in India, right? Like the Jains, they cover their face and they carry a broom, and when they walk, they first sweep the ground before they walk. And so there are, groups, spiritual groups in India who try very hard to minimize any kind of violence. But the fact is, just our presence on this earth means that there will be some, violence that we commit just by our presence here. But when we use our life in the service of God, then that karma is neutralized. It becomes a form of yajna.
The whole system of karma is designed so that we can realize its impact on our life and ultimately turn to Krishna. And as soon as we turn to Krishna, then the karma account Krishna takes over that karma account. It's like written off. It's like a written off account after that. And as long as we are not turning towards Krishna, then that account keeps on growing. So karma is also not permanent. It's not like an absolute authority that okay, once you have committed a karma, then that's going to stay with you forever. It's designed by Krishna just to impel us to realize that there is a superior authority, that is Krishna, and turn towards him. And the account can be neutralized.
Imami, does that help? Yeah?
But that doesn't mean that we still engage in willful killing. So one has to be extra cautious to minimize killing at all levels and at all forms. That also includes treating everybody with kindness, not just animals but other human beings. Treating everybody with kindness, free from envy. That is the first quality of a saintly person or a person who is progressing, is to become free from envy. I was just reading recently in Bhagavatam that when Diti, whose two sons, Hiranyakashipu and Hiranyakashipu, were killed, she asked her husband, what can I do to please the Supreme Lord? And because she wanted to get a son who would kill Indra. So then Kashyapa Muni gave her a practice of worshipping the Lord, and the first instruction he gives is that become free from envy of all. Because he wanted his wife to become free from that envy towards Indra. So he said the first step of worshipping the Lord is to become free from envy towards other living entities, all kind of living entities. So when we have that attitude, that immediately pleases Krishna, and then he removes all obstacles from our life. So karma and envy, they are very deeply connected.
Yes.
Just on one point, I don't know if it is correct or not. What I heard in one of the lecture somewhere online, they were saying if you have to kill for survival, then also you have to choose the least conscious animals and then go up to hierarchy for survival. Like say fish, if you have to kill, fish has the least in terms of if you want to eat the food, if you have to eat for your survival, then he has given some hierarchy over it.
So that's a very good point. I don't know if you heard it. It says if you have to kill for the survival, if you have to kill for survival, your own survival, then choose the least conscious being. And then there's a hierarchy amongst even animals. Cow is considered like the highest in terms of the animal hierarchy because cow is very dear to Krishna, and consciousness-wise it's also very high. So cow is forbidden, but other animals, depending on what is available and what your situation is.
In current times, I guess that doesn't quite apply because there's so much food.
Yeah, there's so much food.
Mayank, any thoughts from you on this section?
No.
Yeah. Okay. Yes.
As a thought on it, it reminds me of the further we go back in time, the more balance and respect we had for nature.
Yeah.
So things are done more balanced, so that there was not as much harm done. And when you think about how we do things today, how it's a complete imbalance. We're just talking about the saints and those of us with different spiritual abilities. When we enter into a home, people would show them respect in different type of ways. Things that we don't do that's kind of reflected across the ecosystem, not just with each other, but through the animal kingdom, nature.
Everywhere, right?
Yeah, exactly.
It's everywhere. And actually, another point that I found very interesting here was Prabhupada saying that men are not meant for quarreling like cats and dogs. So Prabhupada actually makes a connection between animal slaughter and wars. It says that this widespread killing of each other in wars and terrorism is actually a result of indiscriminate killing of animals. It's a collective karma accumulated through animal killing that manifests as these great calamities and wars and stuff. So I've always found that very, very interesting. And it kind of goes along those lines, like violence breeds more violence.
I just wanted to bring up, because I mentioned that how the paragraphs are
I just felt that in this paragraph really asks everybody to become vegetarian.
Yeah.
Well, that is one of the things that is being mentioned here. I guess the main point is to realize the aim of life, right? That's how this paragraph starts.
So recently, scientists have found that even plants are alive.
Yeah.
So what do you eat then?
Yeah.
Killing a plant is okay, but killing an animal is not. So, I know we can take this discussion wherever whatever we want. Like we can discuss for hours, but I don't know. That's the message I got. That you cannot kill animals, but now we know that plants also have life.
Actually, the Vedas talk about plants having life. Like that's one of the things the Vedas talk about. You want some water? No, that's all right. So I was just saying that plants having life is something that the Vedas have talked about since the last 5,000 years ago and even before that. And then Jagdish Chandra Bose, he did an experiment and he showed that how actually plants do have life. So that is accepted. So that's the discussion that I think Vivami was also asking. So then what does it mean? Because there's karma. Even if you're eating a plant or you're eating a fruit, no, the fruits it's a lot less. But if you're eating any kind of a plant, there is karma, because you're killing a plant. So then how does that connect with okay, I can't eat an animal, I can't kill an animal, but it's okay for me to kill a plant? And so that's why Krishna speaks in the Bhagavad Gita and he talks about yajna. He says even the act of cooking vegetarian food and eating vegetarian food for one's own satisfaction actually produces karmic reaction. Yajna Shishta Shiva Shata. He says that there is sin even in that act of cooking and eating. And so then what's the solution? And he talks about the prashadam. The act of cooking for the satisfaction of God and offering that food in yajna and then accepting that remnant, and that's called prashad. And that food is actually karma free. There's no karma there because that food has not been cooked for myself and has actually been cooked for the satisfaction of God. So that's how you neutralize
And even the plant that is incidentally killed in that situation, that because the food is offered to Krishna or God, then the plant also, whoever is involved in that, they get also the benefit.
So every meal needs to be offered to Krishna first?
That's what the practitioners of Bhakti, and that's what we do. Whatever we cook, we first offer it to Krishna, and we cook with that intention that I'm cooking this for Krishna, and in that way, so Prabhupada would say, we are not vegetarians, we're actually Krishnatarians. That means we don't just eat, because you're right. I mean, anybody can question us on this idea of vegetarianism and say, well, plants have life too. So that's why we take vegetarianism, sometimes we say the word beyond vegetarianism, that this is even beyond that we want to be even more non-violent. Because when we eat a plant and we cook something with that and we offer it to Krishna, then that plant actually gets spiritual benefit, And in the Bhagavatam, there's a verse that says we cannot live without violence. When we come into this world, for our sustenance, there is innate violence, but we, of course, try to minimize that, and that's why plant killing versus animal killing.
And the way Krishna has designed this universe, we don't have control over that. So Krishna says, Jiva Jivasya Jivanam, that one living entity is the food for another living entity. And this is how Krishna has designed. But here in this paragraph, it says that a human realizes the aim of life. So in Bhagavad Gita, 3rd chapter, it says that Sahayagya Prajasistva, that this whole universe is created for the purpose of yajna. And Krishna has supplied all the ingredients, so an intelligent person can utilize all the ingredients for yajna. And once we do that, like offering whatever ingredients are here in service of Krishna, then everybody gets the benefit, everybody gets uplifted. And when we just consume it for our own purpose, then everybody suffers.
Prashadam is very powerful. I mean, once we start offering our food and taking that, you can really experience a whole shift in our consciousness. It's something that really affects us. I was going to say something else too.
You still have a puzzled look on your face.
Yes, I feel like why did Krishna create a world or this universe that has violence?
Yeah.
And then make us work to utilize the effect of that. Why are we here?
That's such a great question. Yeah.
That's a whole other discussion, but
That's
that's a very good question.
That's a very good question. Then why are we here? And why would God create a world where there is violence, right?
Yeah.
And one of the answers, there's so many answers, but one of the answers that Prabhupada gives. Anybody wants to take that, by the way? Maybe we can open it up. Anybody has any thoughts? Any thoughts?
Well, one of the ways that I've heard it explained that always stuck with me is that for us, like I'm thinking of my daughter, I want her to choose to do the right thing, not just make her do the right thing with rules. And I think similarly for us to choose love of God, there has to be a free choice. And so we're given the facility to have experiences in this material world because as souls, Krishna made us with free will to have to freely choose love. And so in order for that choice to exist and be real, there also has to be the real experience of what it feels like to not choose Krishna. So I think that's something that's always stuck with me anyway.
Yeah, thank you. That's a good. Anybody else?
I think that once God has given us the form of human, it's not just He has some expectation, but we have some obligations too. Why we are not cats and dogs and any other animal? Because they cannot think and they cannot thank God. So that's why it's us who is to make sensible decisions. How we want to react and how we want to act in life, and based on our karma and action, our next birth is decided. So if we act like animals, we'll be definitely get into animal form in next life, and then we don't have choice. Animals don't have choice what to do, because suppose a lion has no choice but to kill someone. But as a human, we have choice, whether to do good thing or bad thing, whether to accept Krishna or not, or anything.
Yeah, your original question of
So that reminds me of the story of Yogi and Ramai's towards the Yogi. He's like scared of the cat. So he asks the Yogi, and the Yogi says that, what is it that you're bothering me? And he says, there's a cat chasing me. So I want to be a cat. So he makes him a cat, and then so on and on. Then he becomes a tiger, and then he tries to attack the Yogi, and the Yogi says that it again become a mouse. The situation of our, for us is the same. When Krishna gave us the full form that we wanted, similar to him, we still wanted to enjoy more. We want to taste different things. We want to, enjoy more. So he provided each and everything, but again, we are like that, that tiger who's not thankful or grateful for what we have got. So that's why we are, stuck like that.
Yeah, the violence is created by envy. The root cause of violence is envy. When we are envious of somebody, then we want to bring that person down, and to the extent that somebody may even want to kill the person for their own benefit. So in this material world, the reason this material world is created because some living entities, they become envious of Krishna. And they are not happy in the spiritual world for whatever reason, they misuse their free will. They develop an envy for Krishna, because of which Krishna sends them to this material world. He creates a material world where a living entity can exercise their free will and express their envy, and gradually get rid of that envy. So because every living entity has envy for each other and towards Krishna, this world becomes a violent place. Because violence means envy, and envy means violence. Now Krishna also has to correct that envy, so therefore he provides the consequences in terms of karma. So the karma works, as we act with envy and violence, the karma comes in, and we start suffering the consequences. And then he also provides the knowledge through Bhagavad Gita, through different saints, through all different traditions, so that we can get rid of that envy and get rid of that violence. So Krishna has a very difficult job, because he has to allow us to exercise our free will, as Adam was saying, yet make the understanding so subtle he can't force it that, hey, every time you do something we immediately get the reaction, then it doesn't, like the realization is not so strong. It's like we want a subtle kind of a understanding, so it goes deeper into our heart. So just like a prison is a place where people who have envy and who have committed violence, they go there. But the prison itself is a place which is of great violence. There's a lot of violence in the prison, because everybody is envious of each other. So that is the situation in this material world. It's a place that Krishna doesn't create a place with violence. He doesn't say, okay, go ahead and kill each other. That's not Krishna's intention. The intention is ours, because we are envious and we try to kill each other as human beings or as other different forms. And Krishna is trying to help us to get rid of that envy. And as soon as we get rid of that envy, the violence also disappears.
It's the nature of darkness. So somebody might say, in a sense, darkness, one could say, is a creation, or it's dependent on the sun, right? But at the same time, darkness is simply the absence of sun. So in the same way, this material world being a violent place, an envious place, is not Krishna, putting us on this chessboard and creating violence just so that he can have a good show. But it's really because we have turned our back towards Krishna. Prabhupada uses that analogy. He says, as soon as we turn our back towards the sun, then we see the shadow. And so in the same way, this darkness or this violence that we see in this world is a direct result of turning our face away from God. And so we engage in all of these different violent activities with each other. And like you're saying, the whole purpose of spiritual life is to revive, turn our face back to the sun so that there's no longer any darkness. So that actually, one of the things I really liked what you said was this exasperation that why am I here? That question is actually a very profound question, and it's a beginning of our spiritual life. Because when we start looking at the world and thinking, there's so much suffering, there's so much violence, what am I doing here? What brought me here? Then that opens up our doors back, to turning towards the sun, turning towards God. So, anybody?
I really like second chapter when they talk about like how to engage our desires in a spiritual way instead of a material way to overcome lust and anger, and that not only helps us to advance in our Krishna consciousness, but also like the two birds that are explained as soul and super soul. It makes our connection with it through, which is time immemorial, instead of staying in the karmic reactions in this material world.
Conflicted, let me reconcile. But so based on this paragraph and whatever we discussed, there are a few things that I concluded that animals are inferior life.
Yes.
That's the first. And still, you're saying don't kill animals for whatever reason, for food or whatever. At the same time, Krishna preaches, or he tells Arjuna, it's all right to kill so many human beings. So,
what's going on here?
So yeah, so help me reconcile
It's a
with this.
very,
So what's,
very difficult.
I had a thought and a response at the same time, because it actually goes right into what I was about to say about how we are here and we go through these different lives and incarnations, even as animals ourselves, going through incarnations of animals, learning compassion for other beings, including ourselves, and unconditional love for each other. Because in the spiritual world, that's all there is unconditional love. So we wouldn't be able to express that if we can't even get it right here. So that would be the purpose of seeing the violence, seeing the suffering, seeing all these things, and understanding about the things that we can't change, that we have no control over, like we talked about before as well too.
But then the first like to answer Premda Madan Murali this question.
I can try. So actually, first when you discuss these things in first chapter, this is very important to understand that this is taking place in the backdrop. There's a battle. No matter what you think that I am supposed to do this and all, this is gonna happen. At that point of time, it was Arjun's dharma. But having said that, whatever Arjun says in the first chapter is very important. Like Kulakshay Pranashanti, Kuladharma Sanatana Dharminaste, Kulam Krishnam Adharma Vibhavati, starting from that sloka, I mean, if you go at Adharma, Abhitavat, like Kulashanti Kulasriya, that series of 5 or 6 slokas, they are still valid. If you are not in the situation, so basically he is condemning violence there. And just because he is already in a battlefield, he cannot avoid that situation. He can take himself out of that battlefield, but this is going to happen still. So Krishna is just reminding him that this is your dharma. I think that's the justification he is trying to tell Arjuna.
But isn't he Krishna? All powerful, omnipresent, he can do anything.
He can do whatever he wants. Yours is a very, very deep question, and it requires. Yes, Sanju Prabhu, and then maybe we can address it because it's a.
One point, I can relate multiple things with the same point. What's in me and what's for Krishna. So, it can be applied anywhere. Like, for example, if I'm eating a food, we eat 3 times of food. And if I'm just making for myself, that's for me. I will I will create the karmas, I will have anything. But if I offer that to Krishna, and then if I am taking the remnant, then it's a prasadam. So in the same way, if that was a battle or even any other situation, if even I'll say, I mean, maybe more than 50-60% activities what we do in day-to-day life, we will be doing the same thing even though we say it's a Krishna desire, because those things, I mean, I'm going to earn, I will still earn even if I'm putting Krishna in the center. The only thing is that I'm changing my consciousness for what is my center point of my life. So in the same way, in the battlefield also, if Arjun was following Krishna, because he was treating him as a guru, and he was considering his all the teachings as his prime motive. So that was the reason that all those same activities was turned as a Krishna desire. So in that way, I mean, we can apply the same things in our day-to-day life.
Yeah, nice. Thank you. So I guess just going back to your question, yes, it seems like on the one hand we're saying that we don't want to kill animals, and on the other hand it seems like Krishna is telling Arjuna, kill your own family members. It seems like such a contradiction that what is really going on. So I guess the point one can approach this discussion in so many different ways, but the basic point is that not all violence is bad, and not all violence is violent. For example, Prabhupada uses the example that a murderer can have a knife in his hand and go around killing people, and a surgeon can also have a knife, and he can use that same knife to operate and heal a patient. And they both have different functions and different results. So one cannot just say that having a knife in the hand means violence necessarily. So when Krishna is on this Dharma Kshetra and he's telling Arjuna to fight this battle, one has to understand whether that is the operation theater or is that really a slaughterhouse. And so it is not, because Krishna is present, so he is the best friend of all living entities. So he is not engaging Arjuna in this battle for slaughter, for mass slaughter, but rather for the establishment of dharma and the protection of those that are pious, and even those that are impious. The people that actually got killed on this battlefield of Kurukshetra, they all acquired liberation, they all attained liberation. And this was part of a much bigger thing. But that doesn't mean, and people can do that they can take that instruction and say, oh, so Krishna is saying that I should just go around killing my family members. And that would be completely off what Krishna is saying. It's just in this particular scenario, these are people who are causing a lot of, trouble to the world, and they're causing a lot of violence to the world. So in order to rectify that, Krishna gives a particular instruction to Arjuna. The underlying principle there is following the instructions of God that comes from the representative, not going out and killing. That killing was only meant for Arjuna. And because of it, he was also a Kshatriya, he was a policeman. So a policeman cannot say that I'm going to be non-violent and I'm not going to arrest or chase after a criminal. That's his job, a military man or an army man, right? So like that. So one has to understand what is the effect of that violence, and you also have to redefine or rethink about what actually is violence.
Yeah, what is right? Your essential question is what is ethical, what is right, and what is wrong. And in one situation, this appears contradictory. So it says in Mahabharata, Dharmasya Tattvam Nihatam Guhayam, that the essential meaning of dharma is very, very difficult to understand, and therefore we need expert guidance to resolve this kind of contradictions. In one situation, what should I do? Same thing we cannot do in the other situation. Not even that. What is applied to a person in one situation, a person in a different ashram or different situation of life, the same thing will become poison. So what is nectar for one person is poison for another. For example, a person who is addicted to eating meat, our shastras recommend that person can go and kill a goat on a certain day of the month and offer it to Goddess Kali, and then accept that as her prasad. But that same recommendation doesn't apply to a Brahmana. If a Brahmana or any other advanced person applies that same rule, then they will incur sinful reaction. So same principle applies to different people and has a different reaction. So therefore, what is right, what is wrong, what will produce karma, what will free us from karma, all these things have to be deeply contemplated and ultimately understood from the words of a great teacher. So therefore Mahabharata says, Dharmasya Tattvam Niyatam Bhuvayam Mahajana Yena Gatha Sapantha. So whatever the great souls teach by the example, that is the right path to religion. And one cannot make a broad generalization that hey, animal killing is not good, so why is Arjuna killing so many people? Because that is also. So what produces reaction depends on your situation, what is the context, what are you going to achieve, who are you getting the direction from. So many factors determine what will be the reaction, what will be the outcome. So it's not a straightforward kind of a decision making.
Karma is very, very complex. We use the word karma so loosely now, right? It's a word that's found its way in the English dictionary and just gets thrown around, but there's so much complexity and nuances even in the word of karma. Yes, Anand.
Isn't there a section in the Gita where Krishna even says so many action or karma is so deeply mysterious?
Yeah, fourth chapter he says that.
Yeah.
Even Brahma cannot understand the complexity of karma, so what to speak of? He's the most intelligent being in this universe. Even he himself cannot understand the complexity of karma. So he therefore need expert guidance.
And that's why, Arjuna is perplexed too. He's thinking that I'm going to get such bad karma.
Yeah.
And then Krishna has to convince him.
You're not going to get bad karma because I'm section in
You
this.
see, I really liked your point about where is it coming from? So Arjuna was not acting on his own authority. It wasn't that he was like eager to go out and kill all these people. He was actually completely reluctant. And he was simply acting as an instrument. One of the examples that Prabhupada used is that for me it made sense, so I'll just share it. It really helped me understand this idea was this idea of a soldier going and fighting on behalf of the country, trying to protect the country. He goes out and he kills and he comes back home and the government actually awards him some kind of a medal and recognizes him for his bravery in trying to protect his country. Comes home, has an argument with his neighbor, goes ahead, kills him. So for that same act, that guy actually gets, some kind of sentence or, he gets punished for that same act, even though in the previous time he's actually gone ahead and killed so many people. So even in a very mundane way, in one activity you're getting rewarded and in the other because you're acting on behalf of the government. So in the same way, when you act as an instrument for God, for Krishna, but the catch there is, are we really acting as an instrument? Especially when it comes to killing, one has to be very careful. So that's why violence is condemned, we practice.
For certain class of people like Kshatriyas, they were allowed to commit violence to keep law and order in society. So even though not in battle, sometimes they were allowed to go and practice killing animals in the forest because that was their job. But then the Kshatriyas, because they incurred so much killing, the Kshatriyas were required to give up their kingdom at the end, like at a certain point of their life, and go to the forest and commit austere penances to get rid of the sinful reactions. So it wasn't like a free-for-all life that you just do whatever you want to do and then you get away with it. They were required. That's why you see in the Vedic culture, all the kings, they used to anonymously, without telling their family members, in the middle of the night, and while they were young and strong, they would just give up their kingdom and walk away. Like you see the Pandavas, in the middle of the night, they didn't even tell Parikshit Maharaj that they were leaving. In the middle of the night, they just walked away from their palace and went to the forest. And that's what the kings used to do, because they had committed so much killing, and there was a reaction, and therefore they would clean themselves from that reaction. So it's a whole system of dharma, karma. It's very complex, but once you understand from the proper authority, then it starts making sense to this is why. And there is an answer to every question in all scriptures. They're very nuanced, multi-layered, and different situations. You cannot take one person in a particular situation and apply the same rule to another person in a different situation. It doesn't work like that.
And leaving the kingdom, that reminds me, I have a confusion on Dhritarashtra.
Huh?
First of all, I'm confused in the case of Dhritarashtra.
Dhritarashtra,
Yeah. First of all, it took so much effort from Buddha and all that we need to leave this place and go now for that phase of your life, right? So finally, he leaves and then he gets liberated in 5 days or what?
Yeah.
So, after doing all that, whatever he did in his life, he gets everything back. I don't get that.
Yeah, his question is that Dhritarashtra, after causing this great battle, he finally, after the whole thing is done, then Vidura convinces him to go to the forest and then undergo all these penances, and finally he actually gets liberation.
That's in 5 days.
That's in 5 days. So he feels that was kind of a little bit unfair, why he got such a special treatment, and I also felt the same way. But as you realize that we are all violent people. As a living entity in this material world, we have committed countless violences, countless killings, And if you end up like a big ledger, all our ledger entries at the end of it will be pretty much similar. At the bottom line will be very similar for all of us. So in one life we see that Dhritarashtra committed all this violence and then feels like, yeah, why did he get liberated? He should have probably suffered for a few lifetimes and then maybe. So, but then Krishna is very kind, and this is Krishna's special merciful nature, that anybody who turns towards him, because all this violence and all this, anyways in this material world is like a dream, right? Everything is happening almost like in a dream. It's not real. The soul doesn't, nobody can touch the soul. Whatever violence is committed is against the body and the mind, which is not permanent anyways. So Krishna just uses this whole thing to teach us to turn towards him. As soon as the living entity turns towards him, he says, okay, all this is clear. Even somebody calls out Krishna's name even once, that cleanses out reactions from millions of lifetimes. And you see that is so unfair. I mean, a person who has murdered so many people, he calls out Krishna's name even once. Krishna, how can you be so unfair and just free him from all these sinful reactions? But this is Krishna, who's like a giant mother, and he doesn't really care about what you do, and he just say, okay, just come back. It's all done. Your turn is over.
Also, I think however long the room has been dark, or however dark, pitch dark a room is, if you switch on the light, then the light shines. That's the nature of light.
How long does it take for the light?
It's an instant. So same way we may have committed so many simple activities, but just by coming in touch. And I was just thinking about Vidura's preaching. It's Vidura's potency actually. That he goes. I mean, those words that Vidura speaks in the Bhagavatam to Dhritarashtra. If someone has the heart, I mean, that is also Dhritarashtra's. I was actually amazed at Dhritarashtra too, that he had that kind of spiritual qualification to actually be able to listen to those kind of words. He's calling him a dog, he's calling him all kinds of things, and Dhritarashtra is paying attention to that, and he actually acts on that instruction.
That's why he was able to lead it.
That's why he could, so that's actually not an ordinary thing.
And he also got Vidura's mercy actually. The reason Dhritarashtra gets liberated is not because of his own greatness or qualification, because he got the mercy of a devotee. And when he gets the mercy of a devotee, then Krishna says, I don't care who you are.
I guess Vidura was like himself, Dhamraj. So
Yeah. I mean, those words are strong chastisement. You're old, you're going to be coughing up mucus, and what are you doing sitting, here? This.
Borrowed throne and
Very, very strong language.
So anyways, I think it's 9 o'clock. And those of you who have notebooks, I want to promote that. So those of you who have notebooks, you'll get 5 minutes or 6 minutes, whatever, to write down some of the things that you heard today that made sense to you. So that way, see, their notebooks start to get filled up. So if you don't have a notebook, you're losing out. So please write some reflections of whatever you thought made sense to you tonight in terms of main points, explanation and application. And then we can discuss it next time. You can also write on your phone if you don't have a notebook. So reflection is considered like we eat. Reflection is considered like digesting. When you reflect on the scriptures, it's like digesting. So just eating and not digesting, it doesn't help us so much. So reflecting actually helps us take it deeper.
She's here.
And if you want, you can also write some of the questions, interesting questions that were raised in the class tonight. And the questions really help us to go deeper. There are some really good questions asked tonight. Okay, so you can continue writing at your own ease. Just a quick announcement. So requesting everybody to Anjana and Sanjay are managing taking the plates and everything after everybody eats. So please wash your plates. And if you have kids, then it's hard to wait for your own kids to leave their plates. So you can, how many number of kids you have, you can wash those many extra plates. So that will take care of the whole equation, rather than waiting for your kids to finish up. So that will help Sanjay and Anjana. They've been having some difficulty getting everything done. So we can all work together. And if 2 people would like to volunteer tonight to help with the washing, well, if everybody washes, then. But if like 1 or 2 people in the end, if there's any leftover, then we can help wash up the remaining plates. Thank you very much.